Okay, so I cannot see the chat, just so you know.
Yeah, but I gotcha.
All right, you got the chat. I think Brian was jumping on here too. Okay, everybody, so welcome. You know me, Abe here with Christy Michelle, and welcome to the fourth webinar in our four-part webinar series around the ASD show. So today, and I'll get into what we're going to cover, but today we're basically going to do a post-show kind of, not a wrap-up, but like what to do next in the show. Okay, how to, you know, contact those suppliers and follow up on those products that you've been collecting and sourcing, right? So I'm just going to get right into it. Christy, you want to say anything?
Let's do it. Yeah, hopefully you guys, if you guys have any questions or anything that you had, I'd love to hear how it went at the show for those of you who went. But, you know, it's a lot of, okay, what's next? So, you know, we were in the part where we were talking about sourcing, and now we're talking about what you do after that. So, you know, but if you guys have any stories to tell us from ASD, I'd love to hear them.
Absolutely. So we'll certainly have time for Q&A at the end. But I'm just going to kind of go through this and hopefully share some cool nuggets that we have regarding. We spend most of our time in Source Direct at the show, so I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, in relationship to China, sourcing from there, sourcing from vendors from China, and things like that. So, so just to recap, here are the 8 steps to private label, right, as far as, you know, what I consider the 8 steps. And so far we've gone up to number 3, which is really source, right? So this webinar here, we're kind of covering sourcing again, because we're going to be talking about negotiating with manufacturers and things like that. But also we're going to get into number 4, which is keyword research and analyzing competitors for your product, right? So we're going to talk about collecting keywords for our products and what we can actually do with that data as far as how that relates to sourcing your product and developing your product, and, you know, what type of product to order based on what customers search for. So we can use that information to for a number of different things when developing your product and deciding what type of product to order, what improvements to make, and things like that. So so this is what we're going to cover generally on this webinar here. So we're going to talk about sending follow-up emails to vendors and scheduling calls, follow-up calls with vendors as well. We always like to, even if we send a follow-up email, it's because we want to get on a call with that vendor. It's a little more difficult to do that with a Chinese vendor, but especially with the US vendors, or if they have a liaison that speaks English really well. We want to get them on the phone call, because best negotiations can happen when you're live talking to someone and you can immediately kind of feel the energy and tweak your conversation to cater to that. Whereas you're on email, it's slow, it's back and forth. It may take a few days to get the answers that you want. We're going to talk about negotiating your orders for your minimum order quantities and pricing. We're also going to go over vetting manufacturers, particularly Chinese manufacturers. Some things that you can do to vet manufacturers to decide, you know, which manufacturers might be a good, you know, good prospect. Are they trading companies? Are they actual manufacturers? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about leveraging manufacturers and sourcing agents for sourcing your products and other products related to the ones you may be looking to get into. We're also going to look at collecting keyword data for product discovery and analyzing PEDs for product improvements and modifications and things like that. Really, the kind of the last two kind of playing together. We can use all the information from competitors and from keywords to kind of discover what improvements to the product you want to make, modifications, which type of product, what color, what features you may want to explore when you're ordering a product.
So in other words, we got a lot to cover.
No, it's actually, I think we'll go through it pretty quickly. I mean, I'm not going to go so deep into all these, but we're going to tie it all together pretty nicely. So, okay, so here's the simple email template you've already seen. And this is the one that we kind of showed you before the show. So we're just going to kind of change this a little bit to turn it into like a follow-up email, right? So this is the one you kind of leveraging the show, using this, going to send this to the vendor, like, hey, we'll be at the show and we want to do this with our products, right? We want, the whole magic question. So we're just going to change that a little bit. So this is a follow-up template email for those of you who did not attend the show and you wanted to still use the show to your advantage, and just by pretending you were there, right? So what I do is like, hello, my name is whatever your name is with whatever company you work for. My team and I attended ASD Market Week in Las Vegas. Your company was on our list, but unfortunately we did not get a chance to visit your booth during the show. We discovered your company through the ASD website vendor list. We're looking for products. We can take it out of the packaging, put our own. You get it? That's the magic question, right? I'm interested in these items. So we just kind of change that email around. And, please let us know whatever information to set up an account. And we always say we would be happy to schedule a call with you as well, right? Or, when can we schedule a call? Some sort of like call to action to answer that question. Like usually they're going to respond and say, yeah, let's definitely get on a call. I'm available these days or whatever. And you can set that up with them, right? You also want to include your information at the bottom of the page and certainly a contact phone number they can reach you at. So I also threw up another template here. This is if you were at the show and you did meet a vendor, you want to immediately follow up and continue that personal connection with them, right? So, address them personally to whatever the name was. My name is whatever with company whatever. It was a pleasure meeting you at the show. You may recall our conversation about whatever product and the opportunity to take the product out of its original packaging and put it on our own to resell under our own brand. At this point, we would like to move forward and place our first order, a copy of our license and contact information. Please let us know what other additional information you may need. If it's easier, we can schedule a call to go over the details, right? Again, we're going to kind of continue the relationship and ask to get on the phone with them and start to hash out details. So here is an actual email that Christy sent out to a vendor we met from, and this is a Chinese vendor we met at Source Direct, and it's like, hi, Coco and Angel, which are completely authentic Chinese names, but that's what they call themselves. So we met earlier this week at ASD and wanted to follow up and see if you could send over your digital product guide with pricing and start to discuss possibly customizing whatever product. As a refresher, we use the products we were interested in. She listed 4 products there. Would you be able to provide pricing on them for the lowest minimum? Well, it's MOQ, but it says MQO there, which is, I guess that works. I couldn't edit that too, so sorry. We usually need to test products to see how well they will sell before we are able to place our large orders. Again, it was great meeting you, yada, 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 right? So this was an actual follow-up. You see this is dated August 3rd, and they responded a few times.
The day after we got back. So, I sent all emails off, like, instantly, because I wanted to be one of the first on their list.
Yeah, exactly. So we got back, like, on the 2nd? So that was probably the day after. And of course, they've responded, and we've had a dialogue with them. Okay, so, and there's Christy right there, unleashing her on the Source Direct. This was like our first day there, and we were about to head the whole left side of that Source Direct is all Chinese manufacturers, and the right side is a mixture of a bunch of different countries. But this is our favorite place to visit. On the show, we spend most of our time there. We had all of our appointments there, and we found pretty much all the products we were looking for there, and other ones that we kind of saw as opportunistic products. So that was just a cool little picture. I honestly I was not on the ball. I did not take a whole lot of pictures, so I was limited in the type of pictures I could post in here. But yes. So Christy, what did you think about our experience at the show? It was pretty cool, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were busy hustling, though. But the first day we were there, within the first morning that we were there, we probably hit, 75% of the companies that we wanted to. We knocked it all out in like a few hours. So it made it a lot easier to kind of spend our time going around looking for other, products, other things that were going to catch our eye, and go back every day and go back. And so the first ones that we met on day one, those companies, we went back each day just so they would remember us. Hi, we remember you. We're going to be contacting you. Please remember us. So we went back and we visited almost all of them at least twice, if not 3 times.
Yeah, that's right. We pretty much knocked out everything like the first half of the first day. And then the rest of the time it was scheduled appointments, and we revisited the ones that we really liked and wanted to continue to work with. Because you show your face a few times, and they're going to remember you. And this show wasn't huge. I mean, this was definitely, it seemed like really quiet there, right? I mean, there was tons of vendors, but there just wasn't a lot of retailers walking around. It was a limited amount of people because this is a smaller show, you know, as far as the one in the spring is much bigger and it's way more crowded. So we got a lot of FaceTime with vendors, and it was pretty cool. Which is what I like, because if I could probably say one of my best skills is to be able to negotiate face-to-face with manufacturers. I have a great pitch and it's very effective. And I love giving that pitch to, you know, pretty much, you know, develop any sort of relationship I can with them as far as buying products, but also, you know, I look for things that I can contribute to them as well. You know, whether it's kind of educating them on e-commerce in general, or talking about how we sell products and ways that we can use our skills to kind of leverage that and work with them long term, right? So here are some of the points that I wanted to make about negotiating. I put lower MOQs and prices, but really you can take you know, these types of conversations anywhere with them. So one of the things I really like to do is I like to create a problem and then ask the manufacturers for their help to solve it, right? This is a super effective method, and I actually shared this with a few people who were walking around in Ryan's group or who I met there, and they actually used this tactic and had some success with it too. So just to give you an example, I'll say something like, I'll go in and I'll be like, hey, so this is what we do. You know, we sell on Amazon, and we like to reverse engineer Amazon and discover places in the market that have high demand, but there's not a lot of products available to the demand. So we go in and build products to fit this space, right? And I say, but here's the problem that we have. We find these gaps, and we can't order 5,000 units or 3,000 units, right? We have to test this marketplace first. So what we need to do is order, you know, say 500 or less units to start, right? But then we come back and place a much bigger order, right? So then we'll come back and project 3 months of inventory out based on our test, and we'll make much larger orders, right? So that also kind of leads into the second one. So then most of the time they're like, oh yeah, we can absolutely help you out with that. You know, so what do you think you would like to order, you know, like in a 6-month period, how many units would you like to order? And then you come back and you say like, well, we need to see what the demand is. We have a pretty good idea of what the demand is, but we have to prove it. You know, I'll say something like, if we can sell, you know, something like 300 units a month, we'll come back and place a 1,000 units for 3 months or something. You know, you just give them whatever number, but you know, you kind of like tell them how you would arrive at those projections, so they understand. They're like, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He's smart. He understands the way these e-commerce systems work, and they want to work with you. They want to work with someone who knows what they're doing, right? Because then they come back with questions. That kind of leads into the second one, which is kind of you present an opportunity for long-term relationship and many more future orders. So when you also use this thing like, hey, I got this problem, this is how we want to get started, but you know, I want to work with you long-term. And this could play into many different ways, because you know, we can touch on this in the sourcing aspect of it too, but I also ask like, hey, we are looking at these types of products. Do you know, I know you may not directly sell them, but do you have connections where you can access these products? Almost every single time, you can use a manufacturer and leverage them as a sourcing agent as well. They have so many connections overseas in their community or wherever they're located as far as their province. I kind of set that up so that I'm looking for related products to the ones that they already have. So it's much easier for them to like, oh yeah, absolutely, we can totally do that, or just send us some specs and we'll make it for you, right? I get that all the time. Sorry, Christy, at this point, did you want to jump in? I thought I heard you.
No, yeah, it's very true. And actually, I just want to back up the fact that Abe is actually incredibly good at this. And he sort of loved, I'm surprised you haven't told the story about how I butchered it whenever I tried a few times.
Well, I wasn't going to bring that up, but hey, now everyone's going to want to.
Yeah, well, I would just say, because I typically, when Abe and we walk into a booth together, there's usually more than one rep there if it's if it's not a super tiny booth. And I would go and I would start talking specifically about the product that we were interested in, and I would take on one person and he would take on the other person. So I would be there talking about this particular product, tell me how much this is, how many I have to buy, those basic questions. And he's over there talking about partnership stuff. And so together, it was a good team. We tried to swap that a few times, and let me just tell you, if you're going to do it, practice it, because as many times as I have heard him talk about this, I still managed to not do it very well. And he's like, let me help you.
So Christy's very specific on the numbers, like what's the minimum order, what's the price? She's asking very specific. I am like going at it from a problem solving, like opportunity, long-term relationship perspective, right? So I ask questions and then kind of play off of that and, really just start a dialogue and build a connection with the customer. So Christy's had me laughing hard because she has a tough time controlling her reactions. So when she would ask for like a minimum order quantity and they would come back with some ridiculous number, I would probably pause and be like, okay, well, here's why we can't do that, right? Christy would be like, what? And I would be like, oh no.
Not entirely true, but there is a slight hint of truth about that.
Yeah, if she was taking a sip of coffee, it would have been spit all over the guy's face.
Well, that's very graphic.
No, I know. That's kind of like what I pictured. Like, your reaction to that was very, very funny. And of course, there was the pricing issue, which I guess we wouldn't bring that up. But yeah, so that is just so that's just some of my strategies when I'm negotiating. So now for minimum orders, there's a few other ways that we can also try to get orders lower, right? So one of that is understanding manufacturing times, right? So usually a manufacturer just does not have these items like in their warehouse, right? They collect orders and then they have scheduled manufacturing times where they actually make the products and send them out. A lot of times when you place an order, they will be like, okay, this item won't be available until 2 weeks, right? Because they have to actually make them. So one thing you should always ask is like, hey, what is your, what are your manufacturing times? Like, how often do you actually, manufacture products? And if they're like, oh, every day we're always printing them out, big, that's great. But one thing I'll always ask if I'm looking for minimum orders is like, do you have any items available in stock or overstock, right? That you can't move and you want to move them. Usually you can get lower minimums and lower pricing on those items because they're just looking to get those out of their warehouse, right? So if you find out like, yeah, they have, an overstock of like 1,500 units, and you'd be like, okay, I'll take them all. Can you work with me on the price so we can kind of test this reasonably, right? The other thing you can do is if you know their scheduled production times and they're like, they will not budge on 2,000 units or whatever like that, and you only want like 200, 300, you'd be like, okay, listen, when's the next time you go into production? And they could be like, okay, we go into production on, 15th of every month or whatever. You'd be like, okay, the next time you do, can you just make 200 more and just leave all labels off, send it in a plain box? And usually they'd be like, yeah, no problem, we can do that, right? I've used that strategy a lot, and it definitely works. Doesn't always work. Sometimes it just won't do it, but it has worked. I've given this tip to coaching students, and they've had success with it as well. The other thing you can do beforehand when you're negotiating prices is you can check prices on Alibaba 1688 and Taobao. 1688 and Taobao are, if I'm pronouncing that right, I don't know, but those are local Chinese e-commerce websites, right? So you can check these websites and get ideas on, you can usually find the manufacturers of the exact product on there someone else is selling, and you could see what, the low price is, right? So really what the manufacturer can sell it for. So if he's gouging that price heavily, what your negotiating kind of parameters are, like how low you can come down and request prices. And I would say to be persistent, right? Continue, don't wait for their response. If they don't respond to you in 24 hours, send another email, right? If you can place a phone call, place a phone call. Like, just be persistent, constantly get them on the phone, constantly talk to them. They'll remember you, they'll start to like you. You think they might not start to like you, but they'll think you're a character. I get that all the time, and like, I've developed friendships with, especially U.S. wholesalers and stuff like that, like great friendships with people just because I'm on the phone with them all the time. So those are just some things that you can do when you're negotiating, right? I don't know if Christy, if you want to add anything. I know you are pretty much, you're sourcing more than I am, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you covered pretty much everything there. Took the 9 bullets and turned them into good things.
Yeah, so that was funny. All right, so we're going to talk about vetting manufacturers. Now, this is, for the most part, vetting manufacturers in China, right? So for U.S. wholesalers, like, really, if they don't have a website or, you know, little things like that, or if they come in their email address is like AOL.com, you know, it's pretty much like a red flag, like, okay, but, you know, it's a little bit, you know, when talking about the U.S., it's a little easier, right? But talking over China, I mean, they're not accessible, really. There's a language barrier, there's a time barrier. So you got to come up with some creative ways to vet the manufacturers, right? So one way to do this, so first of all, before I want to get started on this, I got to kind of explain how China operates, and it'll help you to vet them a little bit, because really the location of the manufacturer in China, I think, is pretty important, because certain provinces in China and certain cities in those provinces all manufacture the same thing. It's kind of how the Chinese, you know, industrial, you know, the process works over there, right? Each area of the country kind of manufactures, they specialize in a certain thing, like textiles or toys or garments or whatever, right? Depends what it is. But so there's a cool little map I can share with you. And it's just one thing, it's something to reference. It kind of gives you an idea of where things are manufactured in China, right? So when you're looking to vet manufacturers, and you can kind of place the manufacturer's location with the area that is most likely to manufacture a product, that's usually a good sign, right? And there are other different layers of vetting the manufacturer that you can do, right? So I'll explain those in a minute, because I'm going to go through an example of how I would vet a manufacturer from Alibaba. So one thing you do is use Alibaba, right? I'll go through this, and then I'll go through my example. So you can go onto Alibaba, and you can check where it says, instead of doing products, you can hit the tab where it says suppliers, and I'll show you that in a second. But also check the location, right? So what I just said as far as looking at the map. So you also, there's another site that you can use called Hong Kong Trade Development Council, and you find that at hktdc.com. And that's basically the Chinese government who makes you know, reputable manufacturers register with them, and they have a database where you can see like really like clean vetted. If they recommend a manufacturer for you, that's the manufacturer's been vetted and does good business, because this is a site that connects Chinese businesses with the rest of the world, and they base the government's reputation on it. So very useful database for you to go through. I suggest checking that out. So one thing that is a dead giveaway, if it's a trading company or a manufacturer, is the size of the company. And more importantly, you can gauge the size of the company by the number of employees. This data is there for you on Alibaba and there for you on the Hong Kong Trade website, right? So usually the larger companies are the manufacturers, and the smaller companies are the trading companies, right? Now, Alibaba is keyword driven, right? So there's search and stuff like that. So almost every vendor is going to say manufacturer, trading, or wholesale, or some combination of that. Usually they all say trading. Now that doesn't mean they're a trading company. They're stuffing that word in there because for search on Alibaba. However, the Hong Kong site, the Hong Kong Trade Development site, will state specifically if they're a manufacturer exporter, right? So we won't see trading there. So it's good to check them both. However, the size of the company is a dead giveaway. So I'm going to show you some ways that you can check that. So here's the map again, and we can refer back to this. So here is Alibaba, and these are just some. So I did a search, like one of the products we were walking through Source Direct, I saw was magnetic blocks, right? It's like these little toys, these exact toys right here. Sell really well on Amazon. They're all over the place, right? They kill it in Q4. So what I was talking about is hitting the, so you have the products tab, but most people don't click on the suppliers tab, and you can click on the suppliers tab and it'll turn all these from product search results to manufacturers for the products, right? So that's a way to kind of fast track, you know, selecting manufacturer, because you're doing the search, pretty much going to see magnetic blocks, but we want to know who's manufacturing these items, right? So one thing you can click on is the trade assurance, which is basically it's been vetted by a third party, right? So the gold supplier and assessed supplier, right? So also you can click on supplier location. So if we go back to the map, you can see like, okay, where are toys made, right? So if we go back here, we can see down here in, you know, Guangdong, if I'm pronouncing that right, I don't know. I'm sure I'm butchering the names. But a city in there called, you know, Shantou in Guangdong makes toys, right? So that's where toys are usually made. So, I mean, you can search and see if there's other parts of the country that make toys, but for the most part, most toys are made in this area according to this map, right? So we want to naturally see a company who is located in this area. So if I go to, so you can actually click on this, you can select the state and then the city, or usually it lets you niche down at least the Chinese mainland or, you know, state or city. You can go down probably as far as you can on that, but you can do that right here in this box, and that will kind of set you up for picking a manufacturer who is located in the area. Most trading companies, you know, I guess they could be located in the area, but you know, I'm not like the foremost expert, but chances are they're located somewhere outside, you know, either on the coast of mainland China or Hong Kong, and they're acting as like, you know, agent to connect manufacturers with other people. There's nothing wrong with trading companies. It's just that, you know, when you're sourcing a product, you want to be connected with the people who are actually printing the money, right? So what I did is I scrolled through here and I selected 2 companies, right? So this first one I selected was, I'm not even gonna try and butcher that name, but it was Magnetic Products, right? They seem like company, so 2 things I noticed. It says manufacturer and trading company, right? They're verified on a few different metrics, not all of them. The location is, you know, whatever that says, mainland China, and the employees are 11 to 50. So that is the red flag for me. Those 2 metrics, right? They're not located in the prominent. And when I checked this city on the map, it was actually manufacturer of eyewear was the most prominent thing they manufactured there. So, and there was the low amount of employees tells me this is a very small company. So chances are they're a trading company, or maybe, you know, it says total revenue 10 to 50 million. I don't know. It's not verified, right? You can see over here, not verified. There's no check there. So this would be like an example of a company that, you know, I may be questioning, right? Because a couple of the metrics don't line up. But here's another company that I checked, same thread. They're almost right near each other, right? On the thread there in Alibaba. Now you can see the correct, you know, Guangdong, China. This is mainland China, right? So this is the state that we wanted to find, right? And see the total number of employees, 300 to 500. Now that's a manufacturer size, and you can see there's pictures of the manufacturing facility. Verified on almost every level here, right? So even the employees have been verified, the location, everything. So this would be, okay, right? So like RC Helicopters is selling like a lot of toys like this. So this would be like, okay, looks good to me, right? 11-year gold supplier, trade assurance, so they look pretty reputable from this view, right? So now I'm going to go onto hktdc.com and search for that company. And as you can see, the toy company is found in here. There's a little bit of, you can scroll down, there's more information as far as their products, but a little bit of history on the company. If you see Shantou Guangdong, right? The exact city and state that we saw on the map that says that that's where the majority of toys are manufactured in China, right? So this tells me that they're a manufacturer, they're in the right location, they're reputable, and I would be totally confident to contact this manufacturer and place an order. Now, I did a search for this other company on the same website, and you can see no records found, right? So not to saying that that makes them bad in any way, it's just that it's another box I can't check off for this company, right? So if I have the other option where I'm checking off all these boxes that say positive, 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 I'm going to go with that company, right? Vet them. That's all I'm saying. So these are ways that we can do this. You can kind of make these connections, and it's super, super effective. I mean, never really dealt with a bad company going over this type of method here. Okay, so is there any questions there before we get into keep going? I can't see the chat.
I don't think we have anything. Yeah, I don't think we have anything in the chat.
Hey, we'll keep going, and we'll have a good Q&A. There's still a lot of content to get into. So the other thing that we can do is we can leverage a sourcing agent, right? So essentially, we have a sourcing agent, right? And essentially, what that is a VA on the ground in China that works on your behalf, right? They speak the language. They will vet the suppliers for you. They can test product samples if you're okay with that, and I'll show you how we have our sourcing agent do that. They can order from those local Chinese websites that I mentioned, like 1688 and Taobao, and they can negotiate pricing, minimum order quantities, and all that on your behalf. But the best thing about it, and I don't know why I didn't put it in here, is they can order from local Chinese websites like 1688 and Taobao, but they can also package bundles for you and send it straight to Amazon for you, right? Because they work for you there in China. Another thing that they can do is if you want to get creative, they can have pictures taken in China for you, right? So you can kind of, you can kind of leverage that sourcing over there. Where they work on your behalf and just get your product from China to Amazon, and you don't really have to deal with all that aggravation. So here is, I had to block out a lot of this because it has actual product information on here, but this is our actual email correspondence from Christy to our sourcing agent. And what happens is, like, we send her a few suppliers, right? And I'll show you how we get her that information. But we send her a few suppliers that we, could be possible sources. And then she, kind of goes in. Supplier one, company says they have 200, 300 sets. Is this acceptable, right? And the second one, though, they said that they could not provide samples because was this trading company? And yeah, so whatever the reason was, could not supply goods of which you want 30 pieces. Well, they said they're our trading company, right? So this is a trading company, so we're actually not going to go with them. Supplier 3, this is also a trading company. And she also says, check the website 1688 suppliers and search the list of references attached. The suppliers are available to provide 20 or 30 sets at your request, right? So this is sourcing 20 or 30 units for a test in China. And our sourcing agent has done that for us by buying it off this website, super cheap. And the next page shows, this is our WhatsApp thread where we contact her and connect with her. And she was actually getting a sample, testing, and recorded a video to show us the sample and her using it and testing it out. And then this was the order of 30 units that came in. See, here's the sets of 30 units with a reference, arrived today, can arrange shipping for you today, right? So this came in at 1:30 in the morning, right? So task is done. We wake up and okay, here's the label, send them in. This is obviously leveraging an agent in China is super, super effective.
It's kind of hard to see anything on here because everything's blurred out. But these are
I'm not going to. I can't show the product, obviously.
I know. I'm just seeing it from this perspective. There's a lot blurred out, but it's just pictures of the product. And just take it from the phone.
Yeah, I left the text open, and like I blurred out our phone, all of our phone numbers, right? So no one's calling the agent directly. But not to say you would, but yeah, I just blurred out personal information and products. That's all. Okay, so yeah, so anything on sourcing? Any questions or anything before we don't jump into getting into keyword research and that sort of stuff?
No one has anything yet. Suzanne says good stuff.
Oh, thanks, Suzanne. We might actually end this on time, huh?
Maybe.
Yeah. So no, it's
Not
yeah.
putting
So
money on
that
it.
I mean that's generally from I mean obviously going to the show, you have the chance to talk face to face with these vendors. That's why I love ASD so much. So if you didn't go to the show this time, you can certainly go 6 months from now when they have a show every 6 months. The spring is the bigger show for sure, and you can take all this information with you then as well. However, you can still make phone calls, especially, and use some of these same techniques and strategies to get your products, from U.S. wholesalers or whatever. And I should have mentioned too that for a sourcing agent, I mean, it's as simple as going on to Upwork and searching for Amazon sourcing agent or something like that, and you'll get a ton of results. And then you just kind of vet them like you would a VA. You give them a test, give them a simple project test like, hey, here's 10 manufacturers of the product I'm looking for. Can you please, make the calls and get me some order quantities and pricing? Like a simple test like that. And usually they'll shock you and come back with like spreadsheets and additional data and all this stuff. And you can kind of decide whether or not that's someone you want to use long term, or if you think it's going to be valuable for you, right? And a lot of times too, it's not like it's not like a VA where you sign them up for a contract and pay them a salary long term and then have to like fill their days. Like they have subcontractors usually. They usually work for other sellers as well, and they charge you per project. They come with ratings. They'll either charge you by the hour or by the project, right? So, it could be a one-off situation, or you could use them often, right? As many products as you want to try and use through them. But it's very effective to use a sourcing agent. So anything on that, Christy? Looks like we have a question before we get into keyword stuff.
Which website can I use to find a VA in China?
Okay, so so by VA, I'm assuming they're meaning sourcing agent, which is like a VA, but Upwork is probably the one place that you could definitely find it. I'm sure there are other websites out there. I'm sure you could Google it too, but Upwork has been successful as far as recommendations I've made that people find their agents through Upwork, and I've seen a lot of people have success with that.
I will tell you guys, if you find someone that has a sourcing agent, ask them to give you a recommendation. Now, I say that knowing that you guys will probably ask us, and the thing is, we found ours on a recommendation as well. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's the other, word of mouth and reputation from someone in this business is huge. Yeah. So if you don't want to just go hire one unknown, which you certainly could do, and there are metrics to know if they're going to be good or not, but hearing it from another seller who's currently using them, I would say is another good way to go.
Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of how you leverage a sourcing agent, right? But if you vet the manufacturers the way that I just explained, and you feel comfortable with contacting them yourself, it's really not that big of a deal. Don't be scared of contacting the manufacturer yourself, because the world is a smaller place now, and they're the Chinese manufacturers make the most money by shipping to the U.S. by dealing with U.S. sellers, right? So usually, especially good reputable companies, have a lot of experience dealing with U.S. businesses. So next here, we're going to get into a little bit of keyword research. Now, I'm going to kind of show you, now there's so many tools that we could use, and it's going to be pretty straightforward how we could collect keywords. So I'm going to not necessarily sit there and go through how I would sit there and mine keywords, right? Because there's a process that takes a little bit of time. But you can imagine all the places you got keywords. And I just listed a few here, and definitely some free ones that we've been exploring lately. So you can use the Amazon search bar on desktop and mobile, of course, right? Super important to check mobile as well. 70% of sales on Amazon, especially during Q4, are made from a mobile device. Just how everybody's shopping nowadays. So you want to make sure everything's optimized for mobile, especially the way people search on mobile devices is a little bit different than desktop for some reason. So also we use Cherry Picker, which is our friend Lynn Cherry's tool. We've been using that a lot lately. You can find that on reverseason.com. That is free for now. I know that she's going to be coming out with a paid version. Not sure how that's going to be rolled out, but most of you or any of you probably have already used this tool or tested it out. And it's getting better and better and better. And I know some things that are coming down she's adding that are going to be pretty great. I'm not going to kind of drop those bombs right now, but you know, I could say that, you know, I actually just had a conversation with her yesterday, and there are some pretty cool things coming. Also, Sonar is a tool that Christy really likes right now. It's super easy to use for sure. It's a free tool. It has a reverse ASIN in it. And I like it, what it does is on the right side, it'll show you, it'll kind of gather all your keywords together, and you know, so you can cut and paste into a listing or something, but also it shows you like related products. It's not clickable, but it can show you like related product ASINs where you can then click on and I'm sorry, it's not like copyable and like one big list, but you can click on them and see the ASIN and pull them manually and keep redoing reverse ASINs, right? Also, Merchant Words, a broad match search tool most of you are familiar with. Keyword Tool Dominator is a suggestive search tool, which I like a lot, and it's a super easy way to kind of build a huge list of keywords pretty quickly. Also, Scope is a great tool. It's a reverse ASIN tool. You can use their web, it's a paid one. If you have the web app, you can also download the Chrome extension and use the reverse ASIN on both the web app and the Chrome extension. So if you click on a product's listing, you click on the product and view the listing, you could hit the Chrome extension and get the reverse ASIN results right there on the Amazon page, which I really like about that. And you download them to a CSV pretty quickly. And also what I like about Scope when you get in keywords is that it shows you the conversions from the keywords, right? So you can kind of populate that list that says sales in their spreadsheet, and it'll show you the top converting keywords for any ASIN. That's a really good way to grab good keywords, right? So I build all this into a spreadsheet. So leverage our top competitors, right? Because naturally, we're going to want to run reverse ASINs on products. But which products do you run the reverse ASINs on, right? You want to run those on your top competitors, right? So who are our top competitors? So I put tools in here, but I guess that was a typo. Top competitors are top sellers, right? For one, sales is the best conversion metric on Amazon. So your top sellers. Products with the most reviews. We look at products, the length of time converting on Amazon for relevant keywords, right? Like I said, with Scope, you can see top converting keywords and things like that. We want to find at least 5 or more, right? 5 to 10, and in whatever niche you're selling in. So also want to mention, you know, the 999 tracking method that is that you can look to see see the most accurate way that we know to find out how your product is selling, right? So that's obviously you go into a product, you click buy, and you click 999, right? And then it says, oh, there's only 683 in stock. So then the very next day at the very same time, you do that again, it says like, oh, only 600 in stock. So you know they're selling 80 a day. That's a high number, but that's how you discover that, right? By tracking it manually over 24 hours. So that's the 999 tracking method. And you can also you can do that once or twice and then go back to a Jungle Scout scan or a Viral Launch scan and check their data on sales. multiply your estimates by 30. That would give you monthly sales, and cross-check that with the tools and see how accurate that is, right? Because you want to make, if you're going to go into a product, especially a competitive one, you want to make sure that you're getting accurate data. So you want to see where they are ranking organically, right? So that doesn't mean BSR, that means on the Amazon page, right? So you want to click on our keywords and see where our competitors are landing on these relevant keywords. We also want to see where they are running sponsored ads, right? So this is some ways that we can analyze our competitor. So, well, here's the tools, which should have reversed those pages, right? Because I put tools in the last one. So sales and reviews, obviously Amazon, and then we use scanning like Viral Launch, Market Intelligence, Jungle Scout, Scope, and Cherry Picker. We'll all do this. Also, like I said, 999 tracking method, can use that. We also want to check length of time, converting on relevant keywords, right? So you can check Keepa and see the data from there, how they're, the length of time that they've been selling. Also, Viral Launch has a lot of metrics where you can track like long time BSR and sales data. I didn't put that there, but that's definitely one that you can use for that. And obviously Scope, as far as it's related to keyword conversions, right? So how is that product converting on certain keywords? Like where are the sales coming from for that product? You can also check organic competition and sponsored ads, right? So we use Amazon and Cherry Picker are some tools that you can use for that, right?
Yeah.
Cherry Picker will give you estimated, cost per click on a keyword, plus it'll give you organic competition, right? So if you see, high organic competition, but low sponsored ad costs, and your competitors are landing on that page, but that might be a really good opportunity to buy yourself a sponsored ad onto that page, right? But we can also see, who's locked into the algorithm converting. Ranking on multiple keywords relevant to the niche that you're trying to sell in, right?